Get it off me. Get it off me now. Damn you.
It can never be removed. But you know what it means. Look. Think.
All right, well, fade up on Don with a pocket watch. And that's actually what this is. Keeps very accurate time. I used this on a prop for a film I did recently, just wrap shooting a couple of months ago. So it's a period piece set in the 1890s. And I liked it so much I kept it. And I think it's kind of cool. And how many people do you see carrying pocket watches around anymore? Not too many. But this was kind of interesting because I was working with a friend of mine during the shoot, Bill Orr. Great guy. He's been super helpful with me on scripts and as a co-writer. Just really, really supportive throughout my whole sort of re-entry, 4K film cinema career. And we got into a discussion during one of the breaks when we were shooting. And he asked me, the topic came up about, aspect ratio. Because I was thinking about, what's my next topic going to be for video anatomy? And, he just kind of asked the question, what is aspect ratio? And then the discussion kind of, flourished from there.
So how many aspect ratios are there?
Aspect ratio is really transparent to us. Like, we don't really think about aspect ratio very much. Honestly, I think most people probably don't really think about it at all.
Not even aware of it. I'm not aware of it myself.
Yeah. Well, you will be now, though.
Yes.
You will be now. As a filmmaker, you have a toolbox. Right. So aspect ratio is another tool in that toolbox. I mean, I've talked before in other episodes about lens selection. So, different focal length lenses to create different effects, to manipulate the space. You have, in terms of lighting is a tool, editing, color design, color grading, all of these things. But as much as important as any of these, aspect ratio in some ways is, I won't say it's the most important, but it's on par with any of those. Because what it does is to define the physical boundaries of what viewers see on the screen. Think of aspect ratio as not size. It's not about the size, this is a really big screen versus a really small screen. It's the dimensions of the canvas. Right? It's the dimensions of that window onto the world that you're creating. And within the movie industry, the worldwide film industry, not just Hollywood or here in the USA, but anywhere in the world, there are a handful of aspect ratios, and they are industry standard. And these are defined as ratios, horizontal versus vertical. As you get ready to create your world, right, as the filmmaker, you're asking yourself, well, what kind of window to that world do I want, right? And how do I want the viewer? So it's not a right or a wrong choice. You ask yourself two questions. What kind of a story am I trying to tell, right? And how do I want that story to affect the viewer? And these aspect ratios also evolve throughout film history. So we started out with the very narrow, and then we gradually went wider. 1.33 to 1 was the very first aspect ratio used in films starting in the silent era of the 1920s, almost completely square. And this was the only aspect ratio available up until the early 1950s. Now, the reason it remained this way until that time was because there were certain technological limitations that basically prevented you from going any wider. 1.33 to 1 is also known as Academy aperture. This is because it was the first standard agreed upon by the Motion Picture Academy of Arts and Sciences. Metropolis, 1927. Blue Angel, 1930. Casablanca, 1942. And the thing about 1.33 to 1 that makes it tricky is because you don't have a lot of width, it's because it's so narrow, you have to move the camera a lot more to take in what's happening. The three things you got to do: a lot more camera movement, and you've got to block the scene so that everything goes deeper and deeper into the frame. So deep focus, right? You got to use deep focus. You got to use really strong depth of field, and everything gets pushed back into the frame, deeper layers into the frame. So it's a lot of work to block it out. It's a lot of work for the cameraman to shoot it, and it's more work for the viewer too, I think. But there's still so much you can do creatively with it. .33:1 eventually ended up being used mainly for made-for-TV movies and TV shows throughout the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, all the way through to the end of the 1990s. In the old days of standard definition broadcast TV, 1.33:1 fit the TV screens of that time perfectly. But it's still used today for feature films on very rare occasions. With 1.33:1, you can throw the focus really much more on the characters themselves and create a more intimate, sort of up-close kind of interaction with the viewer. And that can be very advantageous, again, depending on the kind of story you're trying to tell and the kind of effect you're trying to have on the viewer. So starting in the 50s, all of this changes. Technologies became available that let movie makers go wider and wider. This is 2.35:1. And you'll also sometimes hear it referred to as CinemaScope or just scope. So 2.35:1 allows you in a single shot to show more picture information, right? More characters, more environment, more quickly. Another advantage with this aspect ratio is that if you're trying to tell a story where you have your main character or your characters up against the environment, man versus the environment, right? And you want to show that conflict. And even more than that, if you have the environment as a character in the story, this aspect ratio lets you illustrate that so well. It really lends itself. In today's movie industry, scope 2.35:1 is usually the aspect ratio of choice for big action movies or big spectacle films. Similar to 2.35:1, but not quite as wide, we have 2.20:1. This aspect ratio is largely reserved for 70mm films. Movies that are shot on 70mm film stock and then projected on 70mm in the theater. Even though it's not as wide as scope, it still delivers a huge sense of spectacle, and it really shows characters up against the environment. Now, if you want to get really extreme with widescreen, the widest aspect ratio that was ever created in the film industry is 2.75 to 1. One of the very first times it was used was in 1959 with Ben-Hur. It shows you what you can really do when you take aspect ratio to the widest extreme. And the 2.75 to 1 aspect ratio is not something of the past, though. Quentin Tarantino did a film a couple of years ago called The Hateful Eight, also shot in 2.75 to 1. .275 to 1 is rarely used because of the shooting logistics. But when it is, it really, really pays off in a way that no other aspect ratio can.
What am I doing here? What happened?
Well, you fell into San Francisco Bay.
And this is 1.85 to 1. I call it the middle ground. It gives you a lot of canvas to work with, but obviously not as much as Scope, and certainly not as much as the 2.75 to 1 films that we looked at. And that's okay. If you don't need that extra canvas, if you don't need that extra real estate, then why use it? Why have to deal with it? Many filmmakers feel like 1.85 to 1 is enough over the years, and currently today, I'd say the majority of feature films and television programs are shot in this aspect ratio. In high definition television, it's called 16:9, which isn't exactly the same, but it translates roughly into the same. So again, I think a really good middle ground. Okay, and now I'll put all the aspect ratios together so you can just get a quick overview of everything that we've covered. So I don't want to show you the whole film right now, just a quick few seconds from it. But this is an original film that I did, a short film completed very recently, and it's shot in Scope. Very quickly, I'm able to present everything that's going on. The setting, the environment, the interaction of the characters. You apprehend it very efficiently. Now, let's pretend for a minute that all I had available to me was Academy Aperture, 1.33 to 1. What kind of choices would I have to make to be able to present the same shot, the same information to the viewer? First, I'd have to think in terms of deep focus. I'd have to reblock the shot, reblock the actors, the props, everything, to go deeper and deeper into the frame, which means I need a strong depth of field. I also have to move the camera a lot more. And everything we're doing with all these different aspect ratios, you do not have to shoot on film to achieve them. Even the widest of them, the 2.75 to 1 that we looked at, you don't need to use film. All of these aspect ratios can be achieved with digital camera equipment or in post-production. here are a few really great sources if you want to learn more about the actual history of these different aspect ratios and about widescreen technologies and how they evolved over time. And there's also a link to a podcast I did recently that covers a lot of these topics as well. So just by way of preview for the next video anatomy episode, we're going to be looking at styles of filmmaking from the 1930s. And I'm in the process right now of working on a script. I don't want to talk the idea out, but it is going to incorporate elements of German Expressionism, which was a style of filmmaking in Germany in the 1930s, and some other things as well. So I'm very, very excited about that. And please stick around after the credits for this episode roll. We're going to show in its entirety, it's a 12-minute short film that I did, shot in scope. And it's in some film festivals right now. It was shot here in Austin with local cast and crew. And it's called 2335. So please check it out. And join us again for more video and editing.
I implore you. Another moment, please.
Well, you've got your diamonds and you've got your pretty clothes, and the chauffeur drives your cars. You let everybody know, but don't play with me, 'cause you're playing with fire. Your mother, she's an heiress, owns a block in St. John's Wood, and your father'd be there with her if he only could. But don't play with me, 'cause you're playing with fire. Her diamonds and tiaras by the score. Now she gets her kicks in Stepney, not in Knightsbridge anymore. So
Dr. Riley, my newspaper has already published many articles on recent scientific inventions. And while your laboratory is very interesting, we are after something new. You said you had a breakthrough.
I do. You want new? This is new.
Explain it to me. What does it do?
It creates pictures, not like a camera. These pictures are different, unlike anything anyone has seen before. Most unlike.
I know what that thing does. My paper is already aware of tattoo art. A novelty for sailors and criminals. Nothing more. We seem to be wasting each other's time.
I implore you. Another moment, please. Ariel will show you.
I've never seen details like these. These numbers and symbols.
There's never been anything like these before. It's the future. It must be, you see? Ariel, show him the rest.
You drew these, Riley?
Technology that will take people to the stars, other worlds, things our science has not even begun to speculate about.
And these, they are like mathematical equations. You drew these, Riley?
No. The device did the drawing, not me.
But you built this.
The idea came to me.
Came to you.
I don't know how else to describe it. After I finished the prototype, I used it on Ariel. And when the stylus touched her flesh, I kept going. The thing stopped drawing on its own.
What you're saying about this device is true, then this will be a story of a lifetime.
No, don't do it. You do not know what it will do to you.
I'm looking upon a world where everything is represented in pictures. There is no surface that is not covered in them. And people are addicted to painting their own flesh. What's wrong with the sun? What's wrong with it?
Look at his arm.
Get it off me. Get it off me now. Damn you.
It can never be removed. But you know what it means. Look. Think. Let Ariel take you to the window. Look out. Then you'll understand.
First shift workers, report for duty. First shift will commence in 5 minutes. All first shift workers, report for duty in 5 minutes. Workers 2200 through 2500, report to main assembly area. Repeat, workers, 2200, 2500, main assembly.
Welcome, Day Shift. Take pride in the work you do. One day, ships like these will take many of us away to a better world. This year, the year 2335, is the year that we complete the Great Project. It will make humanity's continuation possible. The Great Project is everything.
Attention all workers. There are still 314 seats available on the next Freedom Flight. Today's lottery will be held at 1800 hours in the commissary.